joined by Mukuru Lesotho Country Manager, Maleseli Mohapinyane. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me today. It is such a pleasure.
So, to start with, what is the reality on the ground for Basotho migrant workers in South Africa since these new remittance rules were introduced in 2025?
Um, to be honest, I think it's been quite a change. A lot of Basotho in South Africa are very highly reliant on formal channels to send money back home. I think it's been a huge drive to formalize the sends from South Africa into Lesotho. So since the changes, there has been some delays, some cost implications to a lot of Basotho as they had to send money home. So much that I think as Mukuru, we also took a stand where we decided, looking at everything that was happening from an economical impact, we went as far as working on our costs for Basotho in South Africa to try and reduce those costs while we knew that we were still able to maintain the convenience. I think luckily for us on our end, we were not really impacted as Mukuru by the changes that came about. So we were able to assist quite a number of Basotho that needed the services, that were relying on the real-time transfer of funds and the convenience of it all. While hence why we had to make sure that we also worked on the cost implication, which was a big one for a lot of Basotho.
So, what has changed most noticeably for someone trying to send money home now compared to before the regulations came into play?
I think I wouldn't really want to dwell much on that, of course, because I think a lot of those that were implicated were the traditional banks versus the fintechs. But what I can tell you generally is what changed was the costing of it all, the convenience, because if most of individuals that were sending money from South Africa into Lesotho, they would have a lead time or turnaround time of about 24 hours. But it seemingly has moved up. It takes longer now, which is one of the biggest concerns because we've moved away from traditional remittances where it was just mainly for a month-end household needs. But we're seeing it moving into healthcare fees and all of that, where you'll find some people as they send money, they need the convenience of it getting to the recipient immediately, which is what we've been able to offer our customers. But that is the biggest one that has changed costing and the convenience of the turnaround time, where now it has increased the turnaround time from about maybe some it would be half a day to 24 hours, but it's now slowly moving to 48 hours or more.
So, I'm led to believe that the delays are due to things like verification processes. So then, how is it that you're able to do things much quicker? Are you able to do the same verification processes faster?
I think definitely we are. I think the biggest thing for Mukuru, when the need was realized, not just for Basotho, but for all migrants, there was a heavy investment on technology to ensure that what we were promising customers, which was reliability, convenience, was met. I think there was a very heavy investment into our technology to ensure that things like verifications, which we knew and understood that were very important, especially for migrants in a different country, were things that we would be able to cover so that it is something that happens immediately. So currently, as a customer wants to be onboarded on our platforms, we have that system that allows you to be instantly verified, and you're then able to send money back home.
Are you seeing a shift in behavior towards fintech and mobile-based remittance services as a result of these changes? Are people coming to the Mukurus of this world in greater numbers?
I would say yes, and mainly because I think hence why I spoke about the fact that Initially, remittance were just traditional remittances, where people understood it just being for the unbanked market. But now we also see the banked market making use of our services, understanding how we actually work. I think it took quite a number of years for people to trust the platforms and understand the gap that we were trying to fill. But now we're seeing quite a number of people coming through to our verticals to use our platforms to be able to send money, which I think with the feedback that we've been getting from some of the customers is they are happy with the turnaround time, especially when it comes to convenience for themselves. And then they're also happy with the costing that we've sort of looked into to ensure that everybody is financially included.
So consumers are delighted with the service that you're able to provide. Regulators, they are saying that the measures that were introduced 2025 were necessary to strengthen things like oversight and prevent illicit financial flows. How do you manage to overcome these things to make sure that there are no illicit financial flows taking place?
I think when you talk about regulation, I'm glad you brought that up because it's been a topic where there's questions around get regulations, where people feel like regulation is a blocker for them. First of all, I think I'd just like to say, as Mukuru, we truly support regulations and their objectives. And I think we've made sure that we align ourselves to what the regulator sort of demands or asks of us, and which is something that drives protection of people's funds. I think from our point, it goes back to the investment that we have made in our technologies in the different corridors that we're in to ensure that we align with what is required from us from a regulatory perspective. I think mainly, as I say this, everyone that maybe has concerns about regulation and maybe it being a blocker should understand that as changes come from a regulatory perspective that we're all aligned, it is mainly to protect their funds. Hence why we will find we work hand in hand with the departments like your consumer protection department, where we ensure that with increasing aspects of money laundering and all of those things, we are trying to protect most customers and ensuring that as they send money to the different corridors that they're sending to, their funds are safe. So I think the biggest one for us has been the investment that has been done in the systems to ensure that we are aligned with what the regulator or regulators in all corridors are asking of us.
Is there something that you think that the regulators can do, introduce to make yours and banks' transfers regulations work easier and even better for consumers?
You know, at this point, what I can tell you is regulators are working tirelessly. From the time when changes came through up until now, they are trying to continuously find solutions to ensure that, whether be it from a fintech perspective or from the banking side, the transactions are done from a seamless perspective. So I would say maybe I'm aligned with what the regulators are doing. They are evolving with what they are seeing on the ground. What I've also picked up is they are actually using the information that they are being fed bottom up to them to try and see how best they can continuously amend or invest in more technology to ensure that they fix or they upgrade the current sending systems.
Uh, Malesedi, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. But thank you so much indeed for joining us on the program. And I'm sure that there are hundreds of thousands of Basotho who are grateful for the service you're able to provide. Thanks so much indeed for your insights.
Most definitely. Thank you very much for having me today.
That's Malesedi Mohapinyane, who is joining us from Lesotho. She's the Mukuru Lesotho country manager, discussing the implications for migrant households and the remittance sector with these regulations that were introduced that are seemingly causing a bit more delays and also, sadly, increased costs of sending money home from South Africa into Lesotho.
The Global Entrepreneurship Congress Africa returns to Cape Town from 16 to 17 September